who are you really? It's a big question. So Glennon Doyle's book, Untamed, has us pondering this huge question in both the thinking of who we are and the doing of who we are. And there are three big topics that we can't stop pondering. And so we would love to walk through those with you. The first one is feelings. The F word. Oh, if you've listened...
I'm not going to do a thumbs down, but I'm going to do one.
I know. If you've listened to anything that we've ever put out, I'm sure at some point we have said the word feelings and both sighed deeply after we say the word. This has been a big struggle for us. Feelings and emotions, we're working it out. We're still working on it. So we want to talk about feelings. The second is about courage. And courage has been a watchword for both of us, particularly after we did the desire map, which
we highly recommend.
Oh my gosh, it is, dare I say, life-changing.
Transformative, to use a very overused word.
Yes, it's true.
Yeah.
I think we've been trying to figure out what courage looks like, and this book, it breaks it wide open. So we definitely want to explore that with you. And also, last but definitely
not least,
is action. Actual action. And what does it take to put feelings and courage into action? So it is not a lighthearted subject.
Get ready.
We are exploring.
Put your seatbelt on.
If we had seatbelts, I would totally.
I know. We would put them on at this time.
Buckle up, lady.
But we're just going to risk it, baby.
Yes.
So we wanted to start with feelings. And again, for us, this is probably, why? Did we want to? I'm not sure we did want to.
No.
But the big question that we have for you associated with feelings is that when you feel anything bad, like sadness or fear or insecurity or anger, why does that make you feel broken?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like this, there's so much about this that I want to dig into, but can I share the quote?
Yes.
Because I think the quote from Glennon Doyle from her book resonated so clearly and has got us thinking. So,
and honestly, like if you took nothing else away from this entire book, which you will, because it's full of amazingness, but this by itself for us was worth the price of admission.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay. Quote from Madam Glennon Doyle. I'm going to call her Madam.
Yeah, I like it.
Feels very.
It does. It's very fancy.
Yes. She says, "If you are uncomfortable, in deep pain, angry, yearning, confused, you don't have a problem. You have a life. Being human is not hard because you're doing it wrong. It's hard because you're doing it right. You will never change the fact that being human is hard. So you must change your idea that it was ever supposed to be easy."
Come on.
Oh man.
It's every single one of those sentences for me, starting with, it's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because you're doing it right. When you feel uncomfortable and all those bad feelings are popping up, it's because that's how life is.
Yeah. And both of us are massive, I would say, deniers of our feelings or ignorers. Exactly. And honestly, if I'm speaking for you, so correct me, but judgy about feelings,
Very
about
judgy.
Our own.
In ourselves and other people.
Absolutely. Which
is not cool.
It is not cool. It is, and it's because we see it as being broken. And for myself, I think my absolute mission to be happy, to be at peace, calm, easygoing, relaxed, all of those things have kind of caused me to feel like any emotion other than happiness, even if it's sort of a fake happiness, right? It's just a denial of the bad stuff that's happening, means that you're broken. And I've heard.
Which means then you would need to be fixed.
Exactly.
Right? Which might be why I've read at least 250 self-help books since like the age of 12. Because I was like, there's got to be a fix for this. I think I can do it better. Let me try again.
I will never forget you calling me at some point, and you said, I'm in the self-help section in is it Barnes and Noble? No, it was Hastings. Hastings.
It was
right?
Hastings. It was Hastings.
I'm in the self-help section.
On the ground.
On the ground. And I have like 25 books in my
I pulled them all off. I was like, ah.
Oh,
and
man.
And I was going to have a conversation with the provost in like 10 minutes from then. I was like, there's something wrong with me. I'm clearly broken because I'm supposed to have a call with the provost in 10 minutes and I'm on the floor at Hastings with all these self-help books.
Yeah, I have. But I mean, I think when you decided that your feelings mean that you're broken, that any feelings mean that you're broken, then you were constantly seeking self-improvement.
Right.
And which I don't think that's not wrong.
No,
seeking
nothing wrong
self-improvement.
But I do think, I just read a book that I keep being struck with, and it's called Solving for Happiness. And he talks about a happiness equation and kind of the delta between two things, right? And so it's effectively it's your circumstances, what's happening, and then your perceptions about them, right? So it's your expectations and your perceptions. That's what it is. So if you expect to be happy all the time and you're sad, then your equation is off. It can't balance. It can't solve. You can't solve for happiness, right? But if you expect that life is full of times when you feel sad or you feel mad or you feel whatever, you're tired, if you expect that, then when you perceive that to be true, you don't feel like something's broken and you're out of whack. You just go, oh yeah, okay, I'm sad right now. Which for me is a big deal because in my household, if you were down, turn that frown upside down, sister, and if you got hurt, it was suck it up, buttercup, get moving. And there's nothing wrong with all of that. I mean, I think all of that has actually served me pretty well. But now that I'm grown up, I have a chance to decide and to recognize, but that the other half of life, right? We don't feel joy without sadness. We don't feel peace without anger. It's a continuum and we're humans. And that part about if you're doing it, having all those feelings means you're doing it right.
Right.
And so having a fully realized life means you're living all of it instead of denying all of that, which I don't know. We're struggling.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not easy, but I think we are feeling like it's a worthwhile struggle.
Yeah. And so we just did the Enneagram too.
Yeah.
Which has been fascinating. So I recommend it. I don't know why we haven't done it up until now, considering we've done every other freaking thing on the planet. But at like StrengthsFinder and
we love the
Myers-Briggs
personality
and
test.
all that. Sure. This was it's so funny because it's like 44 questions or something, and it takes, or 144 questions. It takes like 40 minutes to do. And I finished it. And then of course, you read your snippet about yourself, and I texted Nancy and I was like, I don't really like the structure of these questions.
She did. That was I don't have to choose.
Because the questions are stated as, in general, or generally, do you feel this? Or in general, do you feel like this? And I kept...
Don't put me in a cage, man.
Exactly. I was like, don't box me in. And then I was like, maybe I should do my math because I don't know what general means anymore. Like, I'm trying to think about the time in my life when I have taken risks versus the time in my life when I've just sort of been going on through. Like, everything is just normal. And I couldn't figure out how to weigh the different versions of who I kind of think I am. And so I was struggling with the word generally. And then I get, of course, the profile, and I read it, and I was like, oh, shit.
I didn't do that. I read it, and I was like, well, that's not me. That was the first thing I did. Well, that's obviously not me. And I was tied by like the first two numbers were two of the
mine are tied too.
Yeah, and I didn't want either of them. And so I read it and I was like, well, that's not me. And then I read the other one. I was like, well, that's not me. And then I read them again and I was like, I mean, it could be me. It's possible.
Generally. I mean, in general, it could be me. I know. But I feel like reading through those, and of course I went immediately to like the bad side, right? So it shows you when you're not in balance, like the unhealthy version of you. And I was like, oh man. And it's because so much of my number, which is the peacemaker, by the way, tied with the loyalist. So it's 9 and 6. Those are tied. Is about any conflict or any feeling, the unhealthy side shuts down. So for me, feelings or just uncomfort or conflict or any of that, my first reaction is to go cold, is typically to be like, I will fix this. This will be handled. And then to not ever want to bring it back to the surface, right? And then there's this sentence in there about basically suppressed rage that just resonated. I mean, I would never, ever have thought of myself as having rage, but suppressed rage. I mean, it was fascinating. And when you start to kind of dig in and think through those moments, which I know very clearly I can see, where my first reaction is just to stop cold and to not feel the feelings, which I've been doing in general my whole life. It was pretty illuminating.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mine were 1 and 3. Everybody who knows the Enneagram is like, really? That's so surprising.
What is that? Achiever and what's the
I
other
don't
one?
remember what they were called.
Individual or enthusiast? No, I can't remember.
That's a different one.
Okay.
I can't even remember. I told Jenna,
in denial.
I can't remember lots of these things because I just don't want it. I don't want to own it. I still don't. And the key characteristics of those, interestingly, unsurprisingly, those two are similar in certain ways. And one of them is the key way is that both of those are people who feel like that they need to earn their way. They need to earn your love. They need to earn respect. They need to, and if they could just prove it. So they tend to be extremely hardworking and high achieving, because without that, they believe they would be complete and utter losers.
Not worthy.
Not worthy of anything, right? Of being even. And I do think that, again, so it devalues feelings, right? And in fact, they so disconnect from even having any, because the whole goal is just work a program, have a plan and go. So, so the feeling part is huge. And I do feel like if we're after integration, which is a lot of what Glennon Doyle talks about in this book, and actually what the Enneagram is all about, is how do you integrate all of these parts of yourself. And so if you're after integration, then you would have to just kind of, feel those feelings, and figure that stuff out and be okay with it and own it and say, this is all me and this is all life and it's all good. And one of the other things that I read in that book, Solving for Happiness, he has this great line where he says, if you remember nothing else, remember this. It's all going to be fine in the end. And if it's not fine now, it's because it's not the end.
I love that.
So just keep going.
Yes.
Just keep going.
Yeah.
Which I really like.
I do too.
So.
And I think too that just the idea that even suppressing your feelings or working hard toward avoiding the feelings so that other people will value you still isn't broken.
No.
Like that I think is really hard.
I agree.
Because it's why both of us were like, oh, why? But it just means that there are circumstances that you have reacted to, usually for really good reason, in your past. And I struggle with going backwards and looking backwards. And this, man, this really has,
she does
she is like deep in her 10-year-old self and her present self and her 7 years ago self. I mean, it's really wonderful. And it is raw and, to me, aspirational.
I agree. And I think that what she's able to do in this book that is super hard for all humans, and I think maybe especially for women, is she's able to show up all the way. She's able to portray herself and maybe herself actually, in ways that are not flattering, right? And of course, one of the great lessons of just reading that book is that while you see what's unflattering and you see the things that are not great about her, they of course make you like her more because they make you know her more. And it's such a great reminder for all of us that all the things that we don't show because they're not okay, right? If we begin to have the courage to show up all the way, then most of the time, that is going to be worth it. Well, not easy. So I wonder if we want to move along.
Our question for you around that is, can you show up all the way, own yourself all the way, and be cool with the tough stuff? Ugh. Oh man. The quote, I do want to read the quote that resonates
please do.
Super clearly around this. So Glennon says, anything or anyone I could lose by telling the truth was never mine anyway. I'm willing to lose anything that requires me to hide any part of myself. I don't even know.
Dang.
That is.
I aspire to that.
Yeah.
I am not there.
Yeah.
I don't.
And we were talking about this in how we have both been, and I have so many women that we know and that we love, and you may be one of these women that learned how to please, right? And was so much about, just make it all okay. And I'll just be a little bit smaller so that everybody around me is much more comfortable. And if they don't see me, then they can focus on the happy parts, the good stuff. And that is the opposite of what she's talking about, right? That is making yourself smaller. And we've talked about this a lot, but making yourself smaller for anyone doesn't do you any good or them any good. Because if you feel like you can't show up all the way with the person that's around you, then you've been hiding yourself from that person. They don't actually even know you. And then you start to resent the stuff that they don't even know because you've never shown them.
And part of that, I think, is that so much of courage actually is about trust. So it's having the courage to trust other human beings and to trust yourself. That, because inevitably some people won't like you. Some people won't like you. Yeah. That's okay. And I think somehow we, especially little girls, were sold a bill of goods when we were little, that the whole goal is for everybody to like you. Yeah. That's the job. Everybody's supposed to like you. And if you don't, then maybe you did something wrong to offend somebody. And I think what we're learning instead is a lot of people, humans, women, men, humans, feel like they don't have their tribe. They don't have their people. And at all different ages, they're grasping for that, wanting that, yearning for that, which is normal, natural, human. And yet one of the reasons that we can't connect as fully as we might with other people is because we're not trusting them with all of us. And therefore we have to be guarded with them, right? It's very hard to create a really durable, beautiful connection if both of you are like, okay, we're connected except for these parts.
Right.
I don't want you to see that part. And there was this really telling moment when my ex-husband and I were in therapy together, and it had been described, the therapist asked this question about who did what, in the household. And we agreed that I tended to be the one that did the family holidays and all the household stuff and the kids' appointments and the planning for school, all those things. And if I'm honest, I was feeling like, because I take care of things. Right?
I work hard. I'm a hard
worker.
You
obviously should see that I have got it going on.
Yep.
And instead, what he said was to Scott, he said, wow, that I am sorry to hear that, looking at him and said, that's not very respectful of her, is it? And I was like, what? and Scott didn't even know what he was talking about. He was like, and it did take me a minute, I'm embarrassed to say, to kind of figure out, oh yeah, when you step up and massively overfunction, it's deeply disrespectful to the other person. It's acting as if they couldn't possibly handle it, right? And that's a ridiculously absurd extent of the thing. But I think we do that all the time with kind of, well, my friend doesn't need to know these things about me because what if she doesn't like me anymore?
Yep.
It takes a lot of courage.
Oh, I don't think it's an absurd. I think it is. I think there are daily practices that we all do that is like, well, I'll just do it. Well, I'll just handle it. Well, and then it leads to that resentment that's like, well, why do I have to ask for you to do something? It's because
we've created
a thing where we do it all. And of course, as women, most of the times we're a little bit more in tune with what's going on and with empathy and so we are trying to hold things together or lift people up and at the sacrifice of ourselves often. But if we don't ask for what we want, if we don't say what we need, if we deny feelings and emotions and opt for, well, screw it, I'll just do it, then we aren't letting people in. We aren't, and I am saying this as a person who fully is that kind of person.
Yeah. And part of the courage, I think, in asking for help is, what does that mean? It means that somebody could not show up for you.
Yep.
It means you're having the courage to be disappointed.
Yep.
Right? And then there's the next step of that, which is to, the life equation part where you're like, well, okay, they disappointed me. Was it my expectation? So, but I think it does take so much courage to show up all the way as you and all of your imperfection. That was Brene Brown's whole book, right? The something of imperfection. I don't remember the title anymore.
I don't either. The
benefits, anyway.
Yeah.
The something.
The somethings of it, yeah.
The yayness of imperfection. Yay for imperfection.
That's our book. The yayness of perfection. It's magical. I love that.
Yeah. So there you go. But it does take guts. Right? To show up and be a complete dork and not know things and be okay with, we're not going to cut that out.
Yeah.
We're going to leave that in because...
Can we talk about, Nancy, because we also were talking about courage around just doing the thing, which we're going to get to in a second too, in action. But I think around this, you especially were talking about how much you save things for later.
Yeah. Okay. Y'all, okay, because it's, quarantine. So what else are you going to do? So I cleaned out my closet and also my, my bathroom cabinet thing. And this has always been true, but for some reason it hit me this time. I had clothes in my closet and things in my toiletries that I had purchased and never used. So clothes that, it was only one pair of pants, but still, that had the tag on it still. I had never even put it on. And when because several of these things were found in one day, I looked at it and then I thought, wow, why would I do that? And then I thought, oh my gosh, I do this with everything. Like if I buy Easter candy, take that as an example, I hoard it. I hide it from myself. I put it away so much so that I forget about it. I end up throwing it out. Why would you do that? I get things that I'm excited to have and then I don't use them because I don't know, I don't want to wear them out or something. Like, what are they for? And so I keep waiting I get the thing, but then I deny myself the pleasure of using the thing, which is whack. And I also have this huge habit my entire life of thinking, oh, I'll be happy when, or I'll start for real living when. And when I was a kid for years and years, okay, no, really, my whole life, one of those whens was Well, when I just lose 5 pounds, she knows it because I've been doing it the whole time we've known each other.
Oh.
You guys, it's 5 pounds. It's 5. If I
Also,
I know. Whatever.
for those of you just listening, I made crazy hand movements to show you that stunningly, adorably gorgeous.
But we all have
yes,
one of these, right? We all
do.
have one of these where we're like, oh, well, if only this, if only that,
Right.
if only, you know, for some people it's if I just had enough money, or if I just had the most wonderful house, or if I just had that really super sexy car, or the best camera, or the best sound system, or whatever, then I'd be living.
I will have arrived.
Then I would live all the way, which of course.
And this is a huge part of, and I think that saving things for later too is like when I can really enjoy this, or when I deserve it,
Yes.
or when I'm living in my full life, right? I will then give myself this.
Mm-hmm.
And what Glennon talks about is her whole thing is maybe in a different life. She's thinking, well, maybe in a different life I could, you know, have that, or maybe in a different life I could travel there, or maybe in a different life I could, in her case, marry a woman, right? And then she says, as if you have more than one.
And y'all,
man,
like, I want to just underscore, as if you had more than one.
What are you saving it for?
What are you waiting
for?
She talks about your one singular precious life. And what are you doing with it? And I was just saying to Jenna, it's really poignant for me right now because I just turned 54 and I'm really aware of, you know, there are more years behind me than there are ahead. Well, gosh darn it. What does that mean? That means I should be, it's not then, it's not later, it's now. It's all right now. And it is my one singular precious life. So how should that look? Which is the perfect segue.
That hurts my heart.
I
the
know,
tiniest
baby,
bit.
it's hard. I was all teary about it myself.
Big question. Big, huge question related to action. Are your dreams your plans?
Does that get you? When she said that to me today, I was like, no. Damn it. My dreams are not my plans. Sweet mother of God. When are they going to be? Today. Today's the day.
Today's the day.
Today is the day. And we hope that it is for you too, because there is just the one life so far as we know.
Yeah.
And you're living it now. And saving it till later is silly.
Yeah. And I do, what I keep thinking about too is with dreams, you know, when you allow yourself to dream, when you actually give yourself the moment, which I just even being with us right now and being fully present, give yourself the space to dream. If your dreams aren't your plans, how can you start dreaming more? Because I think we spend so much time just like knocking it out, right? Just trying to push forward and thinking about the future, but not actually assessing whether or not that's the future we want. And so I think this question, I hope that you think on it, because man, we're thinking on it.
Yeah. And I do think it's really poignant right now too, having been in a time when it was so hard to think forward. We had so much change happen so quickly, and it's still happening. And it's hard for everyone to make the kinds of plans they would typically have made, right? So many of us, our summer vacations are either canceled or very changed. It's hard to look forward. You know, I don't know if my daughter gets to go to college or not. All those kinds of things make things so uncertain. And yet I do think there's courage in it too, right? Because I think for myself, the lack of dreaming has mostly to do with the fear that doesn't come true.
Yes.
Right? And even though the evidence is very strong to the contrary, most of the time when I decide I want to make something happen, I can get at least in the neighborhood of it, and sometimes definitely 100% happen, right? So I have good evidence to the contrary, but I kind of won't give myself that luxury, that freedom, that trust, belief in myself, whatever all those things are.
Yeah.
And you're so right, Jenna. Like, you've got to have a dream before you can have a plan to do the dream.
Yeah, I keep thinking, the especially in this moment, I do think it's made us hyper aware of who we are really, and I think a question that I think keeps popping up is, what are you waiting for? Because now. because now, right?
And so our final question for you is, what are all the ways that you can shorten the gap between the dream and the action to make it come true?
Yeah.
How can you shorten the gap?
Bring in the feelings. Bring on the courage.
Lots of courage.
Do the dream. Ugh. Thanks for hanging in there with us.
We heart you. This is a rough one, y'all.
It's a tough one.
This book, I feel like, is so good. If you haven't read it yet, we really do recommend it. There's so much there that even if you just take away the tiniest sliver of it, it's enriching and it's provocative, and it helps you to dream. And dreaming is pretty sweet.
Yep. I thought you were going to say half the battle. And dreaming and knowing is half the battle. It is.
I'm trying not to battle today.
I know.
I'm trying to accept my feelings and such.
Thank you so much for being with us. And I think we could do a part 2, I feel like.
Yeah, I definitely
Because we're going to reread and reassess and come back to you. We'll do Untamed, the sequel.
2.0.
Thank you so much for being with us.